So when examining your mobile environment, your operating system is paramount. Finding the right operating system for the right hardware is crucial in making sure that your company is maximizing your ROI. There's a couple different choices to choose from in a mobile environment, and we've seen that transition start to happen, right? Where Android has kind of taken over the lead role for mobile devices. All of the rugged manufacturers are moving that direction. You see some legacy Microsoft deployments being refreshed, that migration is moving from Windows to Android. You will see iOS as well. That's another player in the mobile space, but it's kind of segregated to more consumer-based products, and that limits its rugged nature. So we do see iOS and we do see Android, and we are seeing a reduction in that Windows deployments. So iOS, there's pros and cons to iOS, and what they are is they give you that entire ecosystem that Apple provides. The user engagement is pretty quick and easy because people are used to that interaction with their device from a personal level. It does limit you from a hardware perspective because all of the iOS products are owned and manufactured by Apple, and there's just not a rugged solution really that they are encapsulated in. There are some semi-rugged accessories that can be built onto that device, but iOS traditionally we see in that consumer engagement kind of level. From an Android perspective, and one of the big pieces to evaluate when you're looking at an operating system is where the future is, right? You want to make sure that your deployment, that your investment is going to be stable, right, for the length of the application, for the length of that engagement with your end users. And Android has done that. Over the last few years, we've seen such an investment in the manufacturers to get that platform a little more ruggedized. So we're seeing a growth in the number of deployments we see for Android. At the same time, when looking at the longevity of an operating system, you look at the legacy systems such as Windows Embedded, Windows Mobile, and you see that the support and the future aspect of that is being called out by the manufacturer as end dates coming in the near future. So the important thing when looking at an operating system is, number one, what the future holds for your application. Number two, what your environment is most familiar with. And number three, what hardware that can play on that operating system to get the job done for the application. Microsoft has announced the end of support for Windows, their mobile platform, for Windows Mobile, Windows Embedded, Windows Handheld. Those dates, they're published and they're here. What that's forcing our customers to do, our clients to do, is to evaluate their legacy applications, the ones that have been stable on devices for 10 years, for 8 years, now having to move those from a Microsoft mobile platform or a Microsoft CE platform to a more updated OS. It's a big change for the market. If there's applications that are native on those devices, that has to be addressed and it has to be implemented prior to that support date going from the manufacturer, or you run that risk. You run the risk of viruses getting in, you run the risk of not being able to manage the device properly. It's a big step that's making everyone really review their mobile strategy for the entire organizations. So the security aspect of an operating system has really come a long way in the last few years. Microsoft has traditionally you've been able to lock that device down through the settings of the individual device, but these MDM tools that have come about have really taken on the Android perspective, right? How do you secure that open infrastructure, the open platform that Android provides? And the MDM tools have done that. There's a way to specifically lock down each device to a user base, to a permission basis, to really secure that device, to secure the applications on the device, and to give access to the IT team for support. With 3G coming to an end at the end of this year, we're seeing the transition being forced of older devices, right, that have been out in the field running on that network, to moving to a new 4G or 5G radio. What that means for the 3G network to be going down and being announced through one of the major carriers in the country is it means that the bandwidth requirements of the devices in the field are just getting more. It's just having that constant connection and utilizing data out in the field is that important. And if you are running a legacy 3G radio in your device, come the end of next year, it might not be working, period. There might just be a doorstop. To protect yourself from the 3G network coming down, you really have to migrate to a newer device. When that network comes down and the towers and radios are gone, unfortunately, those devices that are looking for them will be useless. So in the market, there's a lot of different MDM tools. They range in inside into the devices or whichever OS you're running. There's different functions and features, but what we've seen the MDM space do is evolve. They've evolved into being able to manage just about every device out there, being able to troubleshoot, being able to remote in, being able to download and push packages, and being able to really help us as the support engine better extend the life of that device. In the MDM space, there's some that have been around in the rugged space for quite a while, such as SOTI and AirWatch. We've also seen those same companies move towards the consumer devices with AirWatch and MobileIron really taking on the iOS piece and the Android piece. With those different options out there and the development that they give and the insight into the devices that they give, it really comes down to the application that the company's running to see which tool will give you the best insight, the widest array of insight into your devices which will allow the company to have the most impact to the field. In migrating from a legacy operating system to a more modern operating system, there's a couple different options to do that. Number one, you can rewrite the entire application, but most companies are seeing the opportunity to move that application from being a native app on the hardware to being a web-based application, which will allow it to be put on just about any browser. So we are working with software companies to either work on the rewriting path or the migration path, moving to a new and more flexible operating system.